let's get down to counting the top 10 plants for betta fish. 10. We're going to go with a nice, easy beginner plant. It's really not a plant at all. That's the Marimo moss ball. Now, back before there were issues with shipping these and getting them sold, thanks to, zebra mussels hitchhiking on them, they were one of the easiest things you could just drop in your tank. They would provide the same benefits as plants, but they didn't require as much work as some plants do. If you got a nice big one, you could get some size of golf balls, some a little bigger depending on where you got them from, or they'd be like really microscopic size dime. If they were the big ones, they were basically a comfy pillow your betta could get in there, lay on, and rest. You could stick them anywhere in your tank. If you had a nice piece of driftwood, you could stick these all over your driftwood. You can cut them in half, you could pull them apart, you could do a lot of things, a lot of ways to manipulate these things. You can basically stick them anywhere you wanted to give your betta a place they could just, get on and rest. They're also great because they require a low light, just like a betta fish will, and it's going to just slowly get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've even heard people say that they've seen their bettas, push them, kind of like a dog does with a ball. So if you can still get your hands on these, I would definitely recommend them. Just do a nice check, make sure there's no little hitchhikers in the form of zebra mussel on there. To number 9, we have water sprite. Now this plant is a fast growing stem plant. It's going to grow nice and dense, kind of like a bush, which is going to provide your betta fish with lots of places to get in and hide and feel safe. It's also going to give them a nice structure to build their bubble nests. So a lot of people may not know this, but when bettas go to build their bubble nests, if there's something on top of the water, they're going to be more inclined to be able to build one because they like being able, like if there's a leaf or something up top, it gives them something they can build that nest around. So the water sprite's leaves are going to do that. pH wise, these guys are going to want something between 7 to 7.5. So there are a lot of people in the hobby that have kept them in more acidic water. So there's a thought that there's a more wide range than just 7 to 7.5. People say they kept them down at 6. People say they've kept them up higher. So there's a wide range. Just get some tested out in your water, see what happens. Temperature wise, 68 to 80 Fahrenheit. And you can plant your water sprite like a typical stem plant. So, you take it, you stick your roots in about 2-3 inches in the substrate, give them root tabs, they'll do great. Or if you want to make it a little easier on yourself, you can float them. You can just stick the plant in there, it'll float and grow. Now that when you float it, it's going to provide a different interaction to your betta fish. That plant's going to grow nice and dense at the top, and those leaves are going to act as a way to diminish the light source. It's going to make some dark spots in your tank where the betta fish will feel more comfortable. So you can create these shaded spots for your betta fish to hide in. Again, betta fish, a lot of people don't know this, like a low light environment. They're used to living in black water for the most part. So they're not getting a lot of sunlight. It's all diffused by all the matter wasting away in the waterways they're from. For number 8, we're going to go a little crazy here. We're going to put the first floating plant of the lot on the list. Dwarf water lettuce. Now, dwarf water lettuce is slightly more picky when it comes to getting wet compared to other floating plants. So if the leaves do get wet, they will start to turn yellow and die. This is comparing this to redroot floaters or water spangles, just in my experience with them. If they get a little moisture on them, they do typically tend to die off more so than other floating plants will. Now, the dwarf water lettuce is going to provide shelter to all your top level swimmers, which of course, bettas are a top level swimmer, which is one of the reasons I love this plant for betta fish. It's going to give them shelter at the top, but then it's got the added benefit that the roots go much further down. The roots for these guys go 4, sometimes 6 inches below where the base of the plant is. So you'll have the plant up here, and then 3-4 inches down, you've got like flowy root tendrils that these guys can get in and hide as well. So it's just overall a good thing. They're going to diffuse some of that light in your tank as well, and it does leave a bigger, wider gap for the most part for you to feed your fish. The fish will know where to come for food. Water parameter wise, these guys are going to do good in a temperature range of 72 to about 86 and in a pH of 6 to 7.5 and slightly softer water, which is a KH of 4 to 5. You're going to want to keep these in a semi-moderate to low light, depending on what you have. A lower light, longer time, moderate light, not so much time. Your betta is also going to like this because, again, another low light plant for you. Seven is Java moss. Java moss is just an easy plant overall. The plant's going to grow in pretty much all types of water when it's found in the wild. They like moderately warm water and a neutral pH, so basically throw it in your tank, it should do fine as long as you give it a nice liquid fert. Give it something it can anchor itself to, so this isn't one that you can just throw in and it's going to float itself. It needs to have some type of porous structure to root onto. So if you've got lava rock or dragonstone or some type of driftwood or something that's just porous, put it near it, and it's just going to naturally grow up it, kind of like ivy growing up the side of a building. It's also going to have that added benefit of, while it's growing, it's going to suck all those nitrates and nasty things out of your water. It's going to help keep the water clean, as all these things will. Java moss is just a really good sponge for that too. You can keep them in a low light, about 10 hours if you're doing low light, about 8 hours if it's a moderate light. Again, betta fish like low lights, this is a good choice for them. It's also going to provide a natural look in your tank and just make the betta feel safer. Overall, it's going to give them a place to lay in and hide. When I had my sorority tank, I would often find my girls getting right up in that Java moss and just sleeping and hiding and just kind of peeking their little heads out every now and then. It was kind of cool interaction to see. They could also swim in and out to avoid, fights with each other if there was aggression at all. So Java moss is a good one to do. Can't get Java moss, the other mosses will work as well. You can do a Christmas moss or a peacock moss. Same kind of concept, it gives them a place to get in and hide. I just find Java moss to be an easier of the mosses, in my opinion. The Anubias gold coin. You're going to see a few Anubiases on here. The Anubias gold coin, of course, is an extremely easy plant, and it can survive in a very wide range of water parameters. It has long stems like Anubias Betteri, but the leaves are more rounded and circular, like a coin, hence its name. It also takes a low to medium strength light and water anywhere from 68 degrees up to 80, and a pH range of 5 upwards of 9. So perfect temperature range and pH range there for all of us betta keepers out there. For this one, you're going to want to attach the wood either directly to driftwood, rock aquarium decor using thread, glue, scrunchy, zip tie, or if you've got a hole in your driftwood, you can just kind of slide it in there and it's going to root itself no problem. And of course, this is a rhizome, so make sure the rhizome, which is that long base part of the plant, you don't bury it in the substrate or it will begin to rot and kill the plant. The roots can get in the substrate, just not that rhizome part. And this is going to give your betta fish a little hammock to sleep on. And again, just diffuse some of that light getting down if they want to get up under those leaves to protect themselves. For number 5, we're going with some Bacopa Carolinian. This is a cool stem plant that, again, just like that water sprite, you can either bury it in your substrate or you can float it. So I had some in my planted tank that a fish uprooted, and it just ended up kind of growing into this interconnected viney jungle looking thing, and it looked really cool. So I just left it. It gave my fish places to swim in around, and it gave them cool places they can just get in and get up in and hide and interact with. And they can pretty much go in any condition. They can go in pretty much any light, low, medium, high. The lower the light, though, taller it's going to grow to get up to that light, and it's going to not produce as many leaves. So a moderate light would be a nice middle row. And they can grow upwards of 30 inches. So I've put them in 5-gallon tanks, and they kind of do that. They get to a certain point and then they just start, curling everywhere, and I just leave it because I think it looks cool. It's a very hardy plant. Give it a root tab, give it a fertilizer, and it's going to do just fine for you. It's going to provide a barrier for your betta fish so they can feel more secure just swimming around that tank. Also help with slightly more aggressive fish. If you've got a betta fish that's chasing some tankmates around, this will provide a nice layer of protection for them where they can duck in and out and lose the fish and just break line of sight. Number 4 here. As far as floating plants go, red root floaters. One of the easiest low maintenance ones, in my opinion, compared to the dwarf water lettuce we mentioned earlier. It's not just going to keel over if it gets wet. I've had the leaves actually have moisture sitting on them, and they're still growing and blooming. You're going to want to provide them a low to medium light. The leaves will be about green and the roots will have more reddish tones, but the cool thing about this plant is it is a color changing plant. So the more you up that light intensity, the darker and richer color those leaves are going to get, and they're going to eventually get a nice dark red for you if you want to go that route. They're one of the more hardy varieties of floating plants, in my opinion, that we keep in this hobby. As far as tank parameters, between 70 to 82 degrees, I've kept mine a little cooler and they did okay, they just getting as big. pH wise, 6.5 to 7.5, it'll be fine. I've kept them as low as 6 and they did okay. They're just like the water lettuce, they're gonna provide a shelter for your fish that's going to make them feel more secure. They've got that light diffusion going on, which is going to cut back on the light getting down to the bottom of the tank, and the roots are also going to give your fish shelter that they can get in and hide. And just like the other floating plants, they're also going to provide a good benefit of soaking up all those nitrates and other things that can be harmful to your fish. All right, coming in at number 3 here. Now, these top 3 are, in my opinion, probably the best 3 plants. They're super easy to take care of, and they're going to be the easiest ones you can just add to your tank to give your betta fish that feeling of security and safeness within your tank. So at number 3, we have Anubias Cofilia. This is a very hardy plant, not too particular about the water conditions it's in, which is going to make it a great, amazing plant for beginners. It has ruffled, oval-shaped leaves that will sometimes get a darker coffeeish brown color to them, but as they grow up, it's going to get a nice rich green, and it's not as glossy as other ones. It's kind of like a matted color, so you'll notice the difference between your regular Anubias and this one. As far as care goes, again, super easy plant. It likes a low to medium light strength, and it's going to want a temperature range of anywhere from 68 upwards of 85. These do come from Africa. pH range anywhere from 5 to 9 and a KH of 4 all the way up to 18. So a very wide range of parameters here for this plant. Again, makes it a great beginner plant. Now this is a common variant of Anubias pateri, so it can get up to 12 inches in length. That's one of the cool things I like about this plant, making it my favorite. Now that 12 inches is the rhizome length, so that's the base of your plant. That's not the stems, that's not the leaves, that's not the roots. This is the rhizome, which is the main body of the plant that can get up to 12 inches. So it can take up a small tank like this. These also send down a nice root structure. So depending on where you put them in your tank, your betta is going to be able to interact with the root structure. It's going to be able to interact with the leaves through diffusion and laying on top of them. It's just going to provide your betta fish with plenty of places to hide and shelter itself if it feels stressed out. It needs a little place to get away. Number 2, Java Fern. It's a simple, easy plant. I don't know what more to say. It's a rhizome plant, which means, the body of the plant can't survive if you suffocate it. So don't bury that rhizome all the way. You can easily attach it to things. Coconut husks, driftwood, rocks, decor. You can just throw it in the tank and it'll root itself at the bottom. This whole 2.5 here is nothing but Java Fern. And there's a betta fish in here and he loves interacting with it all the time. It can grow as tall as 13 inches and get 6 to 8 inches wide. So it's typically a mid-ground plant or a background plant, but in a small tank like this, it's just going to be the main tank. Temperature-wise, it can reach standard range of 68 up to 82 and a pH of 6 to 7.5. You might be able to get a little wider range out of that because I do keep some in my African cichlid tank, which sits at about 7.7 to 7.8, so there might be a little wiggle room. Plant's going to do fine without CO2, fine without a liquid fertilizer. The only thing I do is I add a liquid fertilizer once a month, especially if I notice my leaves getting a little different in color. And if you don't notice any growth when you first put these in your tanks, don't freak out. That is typical. These are a slow grower. It takes them a little more time to get acclimated to a tank. Once they get acclimated, they're going to take off. This is about a 1.5 to 2-year-old plant here. Started with just one sprig of it. And as you can see, it does take over the whole tank now. This is the mother base plant here, and then the whole sides are just taken up with more little offshoots from the one plant. If you do notice your leaves getting a little brown and turning yellow, there's probably not enough nutrients in the tank, so just hit them up with a little liquid fertilizer of your choosing, and you should be fine. Again, Java Fern is just going to give your betta fish a nice place to hide, get away, and just feel more secure overall in your tank. All right, moving on to number 1, the piece de resistance, the best plant, in my opinion, for a betta fish. It's an Anubias. It's the most common species of Anubias, the Anubias pateri. This is probably my favorite species, just slightly beating out the Cofilia, just because sometimes you can't find the Cofilia. So Anubias pateri is found in nature in regions of West Africa, where it's going to attach itself to rock, driftwoods, and other things that it can just get its roots caught up on and plant itself. This is the most common variant of Anubias, and it can get up to 14 inches in length. You're going to have nice broad, narrow-shaped leaves, which can sometimes themselves get up to 12 inches. Now they're going to get a nice dark, rich green color to them, and as far as care goes, it's a super easy plant we're talking about here. Low to medium light strength. It's going to give you shaded areas. Your tank, it's going to do great in those. So if you got a small tank like this and the light's only in the center, you can put it in the back and it's still going to grow and do fine for you. Temperature range, it's not too picky. 68 upwards of 82 Fahrenheit and you're going to be okay. Just don't bury that rhizome or you will have problems. pH wise, it's another one. It can take a wide range, anywhere from 6 upwards of 9, and you're not going to have any issue with this. It is again a rhizome plant, so do not bury the rhizome. This is the part at the base of your plant. So this is the rhizome, your leaves are up here, your roots are down here. This is the part you can't bury or it will suffocate the plant. You're going to want to attach this to things like driftwood. If you have a slit in your wood or something, you can stick it in there. If you got 2 rocks, you can stick it there and kind of prop it up. This is as long as you don't submerge that rhizome completely. Now this plant's amazing for bettas because it's one, super easy, which makes it easy on you, the fish keeper. It likes a low light. All it requires is a liquid fertilizer every now and then. It's going to give your betta fish a wonderful place to rest and hide. If you've ever seen those stick-on betta leaves, they're modeled after this plant. So that's, to me, is a no-brainer that this should be the best plant for your betta fish, especially if you're just getting into the hobby and you want to try a betta fish and you want to try a planted tank. This would be my definite go-to for you. Anubias Batteri is going to be a great beginner plant for you to be with your betta fish. Not hard to take care of, and your fish is going to love it. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the top best plants for betta fish in my opinion. If you did, as always, remember to leave a like on the video. Thank you all for the continued support on all the content. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you would pick any of these plants or if you have another best plant that you would recommend to people. And until next time, I'll see y'all later.